All right, my friends, let's get into it. So, this morning, as we posted in the Discord, a couple little trades here, offsetting some small scalps, small gains as we've went over today. And I want to point out a few things as we get into her here. So we had a quad. That means 4, right? 1, 2, 3, 4 1-minute candles in a row with no GP tag. What do we do with those quads? What do we do with multiple candles in a row with no golden pocket tags on the system? We fib it out. We get that high low. We watch that range up. We look for the best case scenario for up or down. What are the two scenarios for up or down? Well, if a fib is drawn like this and the cycle is 1618, 100, 2618, 3, that's a long. If the scenario short is high-low fib, breaks through the 1618, doesn't touch the 100, 2618, or even 3, short, right? Because the first cycle point of the ratio means the most. So that drawn right here, if it goes 1618, 100 and up, strong, 100 to 1618, no 100, weak to come back, right? So we've seen a quad here and shorted under the 2618. But how did we call the resistance there? Well, 2618 is a great spot to start short, and then you always have the target to come back down to the 100. We played that one for a nice little $500 some scalp there on the props and on the cash. And when you go into how we like to level both of these out, we look for things that hit prior resistance on ES or NQ, right? Because we're dealing with a longer term resistance there on ES, which we're still in an uptrend. We're still buying everything we can right now.
Order filled.
But we hit the 100 again. So resistance from the 15-minute we've been using for literally the last 3-4 videos now on YouTube, and the last one that was target hit, doesn't matter. They're still going to be relevant. So we held that 1618, and right here, ES came into that resistance. And I'm like, well, NQ is a little bit extended on a algorithm Fibonacci, right? And ES is coming into resistance. So right there at 5:30 in the morning and 6:25, where's the top right here? 6:25. That is when we hit that little piece of resistance, came back down a little bit and allowed the NQ to have more of a panic dump in range. And that's why we chose NQ, because of the Fibonacci cluster right here, and watch some ES resistance to confirm that move. And what we had over here on the 1-minute chart wasn't quite an algo setup like the NQ, because if you look to the left back here, we have no quad anythings open here, right? There wasn't anything to come back to. There was a wide open fair value gap with a couple different ones that had hit, but they weren't stacked like we had NQ, right? So what does that leave us with? Well, back to our original call on the YouTube, and we said we had a couple different opportunities for the long to continue. Like we said last night, we're waiting for the dip, and we posted a few things. Now, we have a couple things to go over for the algo magnets and targets, so we'll talk about this here. So last night for our group here on the swing, we said wait for that aggressive dip. We don't believe in any downside. It will scam up, buy all the dips. We're complaining. We like to bitch a little bit there at the end. I said, no, this is all fake. Don't trust a single down. Fuemo. That's what we're looking for, buy the dip. Well, this guy stuck out here, and we posted this fib right here, and I said, I don't trust it. Lots of stuff like this exists to the downside, but I don't trust it. As in, it's not going to hold under this, and it's not going to stay to the downside. We posted this fib right here. Well, what did that fib do? Well, we have the high low, we went to the 1618, we bought the dip right here, and we got out at the 2618. Final target still going to be 127.50, as we've again covered 2 videos. Why is that? Well, let's back up from our original fib again, because we've been doing this since Friday. 1 Fibonacci to rule them all, and let's take a peek. So GP not tagged, remember, let's look at some of this price action. It is not the SPY. We have the high low, cycle, recycle, cycle, all the way up to yesterday. Oh my goodness, what do you know? We shied and dropped and swept liquidity and whatever the hell you guys want to call it. We call it a fresh scam lows, and man, do we love those. Came back tested a nice whole dollar there, 24.8. Left a no triple GP. Interesting little algos there. And that was why the shy back to long target is still happening off 1 fib, because we still have this guy right here. The pivot was hit 1618, trend dominant, higher high, higher low, swept, right? Because remember this higher low, swept that bad boy. So we came into the open and we said, well, I mean, as long as we're buying up in here, we got nothing to fear for the algo magnet back to the fibs, because Fibonacci is not an indicator. It is literally, damn it, move over. It is something the market has to respect, right? Has to. So we got the magnets, and we have our final long target of 127.50, as we've been talking about for days, right? So what does that leave us with? Well, we got a couple different interesting things here. We are still going to target the long. We still have longs on. We are still buying the little data here, and we are looking for that final push to here. I don't care what it does after that. It can go flying up to here if it wants to. I don't care. My trade has swung in the position here. We had dip bought here. I think my average on ad was like around here. I don't know what it was, 120 some points. We had the 4K on the swing. Got out of that, did a couple day trade scalps. Great. Now, 2 1-minute gaps have been left open right here. Very, very, very close to each other. So a lot of the times those can be magnets. But what do we need to hit first, right? Well, in the terms of what we're looking for is trend, does it make sense to short a sweep, right? Because again, it took out the lows here, liquidity or whatever the hell they call it. We call it fresh low scams. Boom, comes up higher low, breaks out of the 1618. Look where these tops are. Boom, boom, right? Does it make sense to short the strong uptrend on the way to an algo magnet just because there's 2 1-minute gaps? And if we look at that ES chart, do we have those 1-minute gaps paired? Does ES have the same volume imbalances down here that are open than that NQ does? No. So it is not a pair. A pair is something where we get gaps on both ES and NQ in the same spot in the same time frame, right? Now, we got a couple different clusters that the algo's messed up here. We got a 3-piece, which on the 1-minute chart, not too worried about it. 4 on the 1 minute, way better. We have some gaps, all filled, right? And then we look to the final targets up here, of course, is for Qs. We're not really worried about ESs because we hit those. So as we come into the day, we have that uptrend here on the Qs, or NQ, whatever you want to call it. We have an opportunity to see our algo magnet that shy scammed yesterday, right? As long as she holds that 1618 in our data, we have a blip to go over yesterday's high here to get that. Now, does that mean it's instantly going to adhere straight down? No. But is it a possibility? Absolutely. But confirmation is key. This is trend. They got swept. You got higher highs. You finished up with trend highs, and you're riding my favorite moving average, as always, the 100 EMA off data after these shies. 3 of them. Shy, shy, shy. Ding, support. Hello. Back up. Right? Same thing we've been talking about for days. I wish I had more. As we move into the ETFs here, QQQ and everything else, as again was mentioned on the YouTubes here. We had our, just the YouTube one? Yeah, okay. We'll delete all this stuff. And we had a couple other things to look for here, which we'll go over for always. Now, of course, you're going to notice that algo here in the morning, which is great because what? We have gaps, right? Down here near that GP. So if we sweep up them highs, hit them targets on the NQ, and we start a downward momentum move, we will see it, and we will get that confirmation. Now, we have a couple things to look at between 2 different algos. Remember this big bad boy here? Came up, swept that, destroyed that algo. Now this is our fresh one, right? So what I want to see is I'm just going to chart off the top of this one here. And a lot of the times we like to fib them, right? And we already have a GP indicator on there, so we don't really have to fib it if we don't want to. But what you want to see is a push here, hitting the NQ targets, breaking back down, coming to the GP, and hopefully going for those 1-minute gaps. That will be a trade we look for today. If it stays over 605.81, we start magneting up. We obviously are just going to trend higher, and we will go to that daily chart and look for the obvious, which is just going to be keep continuing up. Now, we don't have any great dojis to go off of. I was really hoping we did on the Qs, but a lot of these are kind of fat body dojis. They're not doing too much help, so I don't want to chart off any of these dailies. We'll go over to the SPY for the secondary play attempt here. And we will notice that we at least have one here. So, dojis on the back test, these are crazy pinned algorithm prices that always are susceptible to back test at any point in time. I do not care when. Dojis are very important to the algos. And we will see that we do have higher way up here for the run for the week, right? So we're not just going to turn around and die off and blah, 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 unless we have some kind of reason to. Catalyst, tweets, can't plan for it, but we'll be ready for it once we see it. So what I'm looking for is that continuation potential. If we back up here a little bit on the 15 and we have that Friday dump day, we do have that 150 that was shied right here, okay? Because remember the target yesterday for the short, we went over, we fibbed this out, we made it right, made it to the green, and we said best case short, and we had that short call, right? And we said, all right, guys, this is it. Go down. Yesterday's highs fill that gap. No reason to hold the gap up. Qs did the gap fill. We got a little push. We hit that target of GP and womped it. Great. Good short. Now, as we come into today, that 50 is open. Look where that 50 is. Ooh, right over yesterday's highs. Interesting, because the QQQ NQ target is right over QQQ yesterday's highs as well, which means we can have that data run up still from here, 667.67, back to at least 670.36 for our friends over on ES and SPY. So we'll be looking for those two to work, obviously above support. Your over-under is very clear today. That is that 100. So we had hit the GP, came down, maintained 1618. So all we have to do is maintain the 100 here, and we have a shot at the 50. That is what we will be looking for. That is a smidge over yesterday's highs. This will be the first trade targetable that we watch. I'm not looking for too much on the ETFs here, because we don't have any kind of perfect setups or anything like that for magnets. We do have gold high lows lower if we do turn back around, but that'll be a little different. So let's add our golds like always. Get yesterday's high low on there. That must be overlapped with something here. 2618, there it is. Okay, overlapped on the 2618, so couldn't see it. Way down here. All right, so we always set yesterday's high lows as a gold Fibonacci for retracement, and we do have a couple targets now to help us out. Now, remember, it's an over-under level, so if we start to fail here and it doesn't want that push today and it's waiting for maybe something on Friday or something else, we are still in danger of coming down to the GPs, but when that level breaks is when we start to pay attention. We don't just guess. So we're going to mark these out. Always yesterday's high low on the gold. And there we go. So the two things we're going to look for popping out of the gate, anything above that 605.90s here, we're going to go for that NQ target. That is the big meat on the bones. That's the big trade. My average on the funded accounts, I have 2 NQ coming off this anchor at 25,076 and a quarter. I am still targeting the exact same trade. That will not change. I have a limit order set for the opening push, 44 points long from here. So that is still the plan. If we happen to break down into the 100 fib, we start going for those gaps in the GP, we obviously reassess there. No big deal. If we bring the old VIXY over here, we have a couple interesting metrics that we got to cover just with the oscillation and 100. Now, when we look at the early morning, we like to see how much time is spent on any ticker where the RSI is under 50 and the MACD is under the 0 level, right? And if we notice here from the open, all the price action accumulated that we have today, you notice the RSI has obviously been on the low side with one little pop over. We have been respecting the break of the 100 EMA and the resistance of that said 100 EMA. All we got to do is stick to the trend that it has, where we lose this and we continue our longs continuously, right? And the MACD has the same thing. So if we start to roll back around at that 0 level, starts to come back down on that VIX. Same thing here. We got a couple cools. It relaxed a little bit to the upside. Now it's just got to trend back down under the 50. And the VIX is showing us that we have a very easy opportunity to also force this open up. And we are staying long. So the prop accounts have 2 NQs on them. We're 530 green, up about $300 right now. And when we get a breakout, I'll cover one into 25,100. Obviously, the psychological we just hit is resistance. We will break out of 25,100 at best case scenario and move into the 25,122, which would result in 40-some points, 44. So that is the one and done trade for the day. I don't have to watch Qs or anything else. I'm going to watch the NQ chart today. So we're going to keep on keeping on out of the gate, and we will look for our final target, which we have talked about for the last few days. And that is that.